Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. Thanks for joining. So I'm just going to be talking a little bit this morning about our two kind of marketing template systems that we have in-house. Brand Bank, which is the older, more historic system, and Brand Hub. I really just want to give you a bit of an update on where we are with both of them, take any questions you may have about either of the systems, talk a bit more about what we hope to be doing over the next year with Brand Hub, really just developing the access and the resources, and then kind of take your view on if you've used it, how you found it, and if you've got any kind of suggestions on things that you think would be useful going forward. If you've got any problems with hearing me, do give me a shout. I do know that this mic is quite sensitive, so you might be picking up some kind of meetings that are going on around me as well. So to start, Brand Bank, our legacy system, which we introduced back in 2011, not too long after we first merged to become Age UK. And at the time, it was a really great system. We didn't have any limits on licensing, so it meant that as many local Age UKs per local Age UK could be registered to the system, could access, could use it. At the time, it was a great resource because it provided a means for the National to create a lot of branded materials that we could then share to the network, and then the network could then localize as they needed to. Provide marketing materials if you're promoting services, if you're advertising, if you want to make invitations, all manner of things, stationery, all those kinds of things were available on there. Kind of fast forward 5 or 6 years, what we were finding was that the network obviously had evolved and requirements on the ground had evolved alongside that. And so we needed to make sure that we had a system that was able to just better meet the needs of the network a bit more. So we started doing a search for another provider, really, just to see what alternatives were out there, because we'd had our system for so long. Actually, we didn't really even know what the market had out there, is if what we had was still the kind of best in breed, which actually we didn't think it was. So we resourced, we kind of got a team together, looked at requirements both internally and externally for the network, and identified the binder system, which we call Brand Hub, as the next step in what we wanted to work with. Introduced that in 2016, and the main driving force behind that was that we needed something that was more agile, that was user friendly, a bit more flexible with the requirements, that was highly accessible, could do more as well. We found with the old system is quite limited. The templates, the way that they were created, were quite static, couldn't do very much with it. The idea with the Brand Hub is that it could provide us a great deal more variety. What we also wanted to do was move away from having templates for every iteration, for every instance, to having a smaller number of templates that worked harder and did more. So allowed us to edit more, edit the pictures, pull in what we needed, and just give more of a variety. So kind of fast forward a couple more years, where we are now is just reviewing. Oh, I've not shared a screen as yet, Louise. So at the moment, what we're doing is just trying to develop those resources on the system, and just make sure that we can make it work as hard for the network as we possibly can. I know there are still limitations. I think there are limitations to all systems, but we are keen to kind of make this one work really, really well. So going a bit back to Brand Bank, as it was our legacy system, the idea was to bring in something new to replace it. So now we have run Brand Bank and Brand Hub concurrently for the past 3 years. We are now nearing the end of our contract with the Brand Hub system, the Brand Bank system, the old one, sorry. And so we'll be concluding our time with that provider at the end of December. So we'll be sending out some communications that will likely go on the loop this week, just to let the network know that if there are assets on Brand Bank that you need and still want to use, please create those now, download those to your desktops or wherever you keep them, so you have those and you have some interim stock just until we kind of update Brand Hub, the new system, with some of the stuff. So one of the things that we're working on at the moment, because we know what the key assets that a lot of the network are using on Brand Bank are things like ID cards for volunteers, letterhead stationery, business cards, comp slicks. So kind of the key stationery. We're currently working on creating some updated assets for those that will then be put on Brand Hub over the next coming weeks. So you won't be without, but what we're encouraging everyone to do, we'll do this week, is just recreate those so you have the artwork. So if you need to go to print with those, then you can. And then whilst you're in that kind of interim period, waiting for those bits, they will be then created and put onto Brand Hub. So everything should kind of be up on Brand Hub by the new year. As far as access to Brand Bank, people can still access the system, continue to do so. We fully encourage it. There's no reason to not. There is no limit on licenses. So as I say, there's not as many people within your local Age UK can continue to access the Brand Bank. There is a limit for Brand Hub, and that is because there is a cost attached to the licensing. So we're currently working on 2 users per local Age UK. And actually, to be fair, that's not worked too badly thus far. I know on occasions it can be a bit frustrating, and we are kind of working with our supplier to look at how we can get a better deal so we can expand that a bit more, but we'll kind of notify the network once we're in a better position to kind of consider what that looks like. So really, I don't know if there's anything in particular that anyone wanted to ask specifically about Brand Hub, using the system. Have you had any problems? Are there things that you find that work well? Are there things that you find quite tricky? Because we're in constant contact with the suppliers and they're always keen to get our feedback on just how the users are finding the system, if there are things that they can do that make it a bit better.
We've also got the original files so you can update them.
We might take it. Oh. Yeah, we had a question from Louise on licensing. Do you mean 2 users to download images or 2 users as in end users for assets?
Thanks, Louise. So 2 users, I suppose the latter part really. So it's not just 2 users that can download. We can have 2 named people from your organization that can access Brand Hub. We can flex on occasion, but the idea is we've bought sufficient licensing to cover 2 per local Age UK and also national use as well. Now, where we've got a bit of flexibility is actually across the network, there have been some changes in structure. So where people have merged, for example, you've got fewer partners across the board. So there's the odd additional bit of capacity. If there's a real specific need where someone identifies they need more than 2 for a period, we can accommodate that on a temporary basis. But as standard, to make sure that everyone can have access, we are working towards just 2 registered users, and those users can download images, they can create templates, access the system fully as they need to.
But you can ask questions later on if you want to, or anything if you think of it as we go along. Just pop it in the window, and then we can deal with it. Or Hazel can deal with it as we reach that point.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm happy to do now is kind of share the screen and just show you some of the bits and pieces that we have on the system for any of you that might be unfamiliar or unaware of some of the things that the system can do. Would that be helpful? Yeah. Okay, I will attempt to share my screen. Let's just check it's there. So I thought what would be useful, and I can't see the chat screen at the moment, so hopefully Christopher will flag any questions that come up, but I thought I might show you a few things. Now, on the system, I'm actually registered as admin, so I may have slightly different setup to most of you, but for the most part, you'll see a lot of the same kinds of things. So the first useful thing I think to start with would be to show you our asset library. So when you come onto the system, you should be able to, that first tab there, the asset library, and that's basically where all of the images live that we have. What's great about this system is on mine as admin, I can see all of the logos, all of the images, but what we also have are things like icons. So where the system may not provide templates for all of the assets you may want to create, what we can do, and I'll just have a quick scroll, is make available to you various kinds of assets like icons. So these are really great. A lot of people internally use them for things like general reports, annual reports, service booklets. They're great to be used online. You're not limited to just using things for print. So actually, if you are working with, for example, a third-party designer or a supplier or someone supporting you with your website, for example, you have a bank of assets that you can access to use to, and they're all compliant. They're all within the brand colors. We've tried each time we kind of review the assets on there, we try to create and add additional things. So it may not happen as consistently as we would like, but we are working towards making sure there's an abundance of resources for you. The other great thing about this system is you can also filter. So for example, and this is basically because every image that gets added to the system is tagged, so it does make it a bit easier for you to find things. So for example, if you might be looking for befriending images, BME community, for example, you can tick on those features there, and then those images that are tagged as such will then be shown in the list. As you clear your filters by clicking on this little button here, it will revert to the full list. Chiropody, computer training, you name it. I think when we first launched the system, we tried to group a lot of these headings under things, a lot of the work that was being done, a lot of the images that we already had, a lot of questions that we were being asked about various types of things. So we've grouped them in as many kind of practical sections as we could. I mean, we're always open to discuss more if you think there are things that are lacking. Questions we often do get about our library do relate to a lack of diversity of images, and we are aware of this, and we are kind of working hard to improve the range. I think where we struggle with that is, as a team, the brand team do not have a budget to lead on photo shoots. So what tends to happen if there is a team across the organization who's had some funding for a specific project, for example, what we'll then ask them to do is allow us to have a few extra frames from those images, and then we will use those and add to the library as and when those situations come up. So they don't happen as often as we would like, and also they don't always happen in the most diverse areas. So we do aim to get more images, but we're not always able to get as diverse a range as we would like. What we do also do, though, is as and when we can, we'll also purchase stock images, which are totally accessible to the network as well. So essentially, any image that is on brand hub is accessible and usable by the network. If there are images that are marked on the system as such, there's normally a tag. When you go to open that image, there will be a tag that will say whether or not usage is limited. But for the most part, if there is limited use of an image, it won't be accessible to network. We won't actually open it up that wide. So literally anything that you can see in the library is free for the network to use, whether it be for web, whether it be for print, whether it be for whatever you can think, socials, etc. The other thing in relation to images, what's another nice thing that you can do is we welcome images from the network. Obviously, we know everyone's doing really great work across the piece, and if you've got events and activities happening, various groups going on, special occasions, we really always welcome the sharing of your images. And what we can do in relation to that is there is at the beginning of when you first log on to Brand Hub, there's actually like a drag and drop box. So you don't even need to have logged into the system to be able to get to that point. You can go to that drag and drop box. If you've got things saved on your desktop, you can actually drag those over. And what will happen is that they will go into a living room area. And if you can see at the top of the screen here, I'll get a notification saying that there's something to be reviewed. So what we can then do from the admin point of view is have a look at those images. And if you're happy to share them with the wider network, we can make them open to the network. If you're not, and that's completely up to you, we can then put them on the system, but only your local AGK can see them. Now, what we do say as far as guidance in relation to these images is we're happy to review, but we really do need them to be as high a resolution and as broad as possible, because what tends to happen, especially if you want to use them in a template, for example, is they may need to be cropped and treated a bit just so they can fit appropriately. So you know, it could be a professional camera, it could be your mobile phone, because mobile phones take beautiful pictures these days. But we do say that we will always review and give feedback on the images that we're happy to add to the system, and then give feedback on those that we probably wouldn't add to the system just because of the kind of composition of the image. So as I say, more than happy to have your images shared. And if if you're willing to share with the wider network, that would be wonderful. But if you're not, then that's absolutely fine. And we can just make those private to your organization, so you can then have them on here and use them as you need to. What I will say in relation to that as well is, and we'll move on slightly over to the template. So when you come onto the Brand Hub system, if you want to create a template, the first thing you need to do is click on this tab here for workflow. And what this will do will take you to a different area of the system. To actually select the range of templates, you click on this drop down menu over here under create new, and here we will list the various templates that are available. Now on your system, again, you would see a different list slightly to mine. Because I'm admin, I've got a wider variety. There are things that we will have on there that's no longer wider available, like for example the posters from the winter campaign from 2 years ago, etc. But as far as what is available when you go on there to see, you can see there's a variety of things. We've got certificates, we've got an events poster, we've got a services poster, etc. And the idea behind these is there are fewer, as I mentioned before, there are fewer templates available, but the idea is that they hopefully work a bit harder for you and have more editable elements that will allow you to create what you need. I can't see if there's any questions at the moment. Does anyone have anything in relation to the asset library that I've talked about so far before I go on and do a mock-up of a template?
There's nothing at the moment, but
No?
if it is, we can come back to it
Yep.
afterwards.
Okay, great. So I'll keep on. What I'll do then is I'll just do a services poster just to demonstrate. So from the create new button, you go to the drop down and then you look for the poster in the list that you would like to create. I will go for, I think it's an our services one, just the one that lists various things. So the first thing I'll ask you to do is enter a name, and then you'll hit add. It will then take you to this page where it says create artwork. And then what you will need to do is click in this box here, select a template. Now, the reason it's set up like this is because what we want to do moving forward is when you click on select template, actually, you don't just have to have this one iteration in there. There might be a variety of kind of our services templates in here. So the idea is they'll be grouped as such. So at the moment, there's just one. But when you come into here, going forward, what we're hoping to do is be able to have a variety of those types of templates. So the layouts might be slightly different. Currently, you've got a bulleted list here and a slim cropped image, but there could be a situation where actually we might change that to the heading going all the way the width of the page, and then the list also doing the same in a box. So it's just to give you variations of the same kind of thing. So when you're creating your templates, in this particular one, this our services one, what's great about this, and this was one of the first templates we had, up here under this drop down list under primary color, we've actually given a selection of our brand colors, and if you click on them, you can see it automatically changes this heading color, the color of the heading here for you. So if you wanted to create a variety, or if you wanted to create a set, for example, maybe I don't know, you have a range of services and you wanted to create one and give each like a color theme, you could do that by using the drop down menu here. In this box here, you see the heading. As you can see, I can run the cursor over it, and this just demonstrates the elements of the page that you can actually edit. So you can click on your logo, and on mine, I go to a box that shows me all of the logos for, so for the example here, I'll just click on the first one in my box, and then you'll go to add media, and that will pull in the Staffordshire logo there. You can move down the page and make your changes here. Type in, it's all in our brand fonts, the color that you've selected above. What I will say is in this one, as you can see where the frame is, that does then demonstrate a limitation to characters. If you can see, if I continue to type and go beyond, we get this red box that basically says that you've exceeded the number of characters. So do be mindful that the boxes are set to hold a set amount of characters and text sizes. In this particular template, you can't actually change the font size. So you do be mindful when you're entering this information that there are limitations to what you can enter. And that's mainly because of the layout with the image down on the right side. If you move below, you can see this further box. If you want to give more of a bit of detail of what you're going to write, this box is also editable. And then you can do the same here. As you can see, you've got a bullet list, and then you can list as you would see fit. Scrolling down some more, all these things here are editable. If you've got an associated email address, you can enter your URL. And then it's probably worth adding at the bottom of each template, the current templates that we have, what we thought would be useful when we first introduced the system is trying to automate some of the content that would be pulled in for each user. So the idea is when you first get onto the system, I would normally send you like a quick start guide and an FAQ document. This gives you an overview of the system and some guidance on some of the things you can do. One of the first things it will ask you to do is complete your user profile. So when you go in and set your password, there are a list of things that you need to complete. So your name, your email address, your organization name. It will ask you, there are boxes there for your registered charity number, your company number, and your registered office. And the reason that that is important is because from your profile, each time you create a template, that automated information is pulled into these boxes down here. So I know in the past, I've had conversations with people saying, I've created a template, but I'm not able to edit these boxes down here. And that's mainly because these elements here are automated, so you're not able to actually edit them within the template. This should get pulled in from your user profile. So if you've got any examples of templates where this has happened, what you would need to do is go back to your user profile, update that, and then recreate the template, and that will pull it in for you. And just to show you how you can do that, if you go into your account, when you go up and hover over your name, the edit profile button will be here, and it will take you to that page where it will list all of your details for you. So that's how you can update that information. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll keep going.
Oh, there was just one, but I think you're going to
Yes.
come back to it later. So it was just saying, can you tell us what the other tabs do? But I guess you're going to come on to that.
Yep, for sure. And again, I'll show you mine. I know mine's slightly different setup to yours, but I can show you what we've got so far. The final thing to change on this would be the image. So each template that we have created, we don't give access to the entire asset library, just because, as you can see from here, for example, the images do need to be cropped appropriately dependent on the template. So currently this one just has 4 results. The idea is going forward again, as we identify other images from the library, we can crop those, and then as you can see, you can kind of bring those in and out as you see fit. And we really do think this approach of having fewer templates but just more editable areas will be what's really useful, and just making these things work harder for you. Once you have made the changes and tweaked what you needed to, click on Save and Continue. That will generate the asset for you. We'll wait for this little wheel to produce our output for us, and it will let us know when it's finished. Sometimes it can take a bit of time, others are more quick, but it varies. We'll just give that a moment. Oh, and there is our template. Now, you could, at this point, if you're happy with what you've done so far, there's a button at the top here that says Finish Job, and once you click on that, that will take you to this little box, and you can confirm yes, you finished the job, or no. Once you've finished the job, it will essentially then save that completed piece of artwork for you in the brand templates area. If you wanted to go back into this asset and edit, it's just a case of clicking, not on the name, sorry, clicking on the asset itself, and it will take you back into what is like an editing area. And sorry, scroll down, where's the button now? So once you've gone back into that area, you can't then automatically just click back onto the template. There's an edit button just here. If you click onto that, and it will take you back into the original layout, and then you can go through and make the changes as you need to. Save and continue again. It will generate the asset again, and then you can go through to Finish Job. Okay, now once your asset is completed, there is an area called Branded Templates, and this basically just lists everything for your organization that you've created. Now on mine, it shows everything that everyone else has created, but if you can see here, let's see, we'll change that around for when it was created. Let's see if we're organized. You can see here what was something that was created by yesterday. Oh, you can't see the one that I've just, oh, that's right. So now this is quite important actually. So as you saw, I was trying to find the thing that I just created. The reason why it wasn't showing is that in this status box here, we have some kind of pre-filled options. If you click in the box, you can see you've got complete, and you've also got cancelled. Now, as standard, active and needs changes will be the things that will show in this box here. But if you want to see what you've completed, you have to make sure that complete is shown. So you can actually remove all of those and just show completed. There you go. And then what that will do is anything that I've done that had gotten to that finished job stage will be listed here. If you want to look at things that are in the various stages of completion, you do then need to make sure that all those options are actually within the status box. And then you can see here in the created, you can organize it so you can see what's been done by when, what stages they are at. So if you look under progress, you've got the green tick denotes something that's been fully completed, and then others in the various stages of completion. Any questions on that so far? No. Okay, we'll continue. So I know I've had questions from people in the past when they said, oh, I've completed something and I couldn't go back and find it afterwards. What you need to do is find the branded templates area, make sure that the status has all the options selected, and then it will bring up all the various statuses of things that you've been working on. So whether it's completed, whether it's still active, whether it's one that's being modified and needs some changes, they will all appear in this list for you at that stage. The next thing I can show you on my albums, so again, this might look slightly different for you, but ideally what's great about this is if you wanted to, for example, share images from the system with someone, say someone was creating an annual report for you and you wanted to supply them with some images, what you can do is come onto Brand Hub and review what images you think might be useful to you in the asset library, for example. So if we go back there and I'll do a test for you. Let's see. So if you wanted some befriending images of women, for example, you've got 22 results. And you identified, oh, this image might be really useful, and this image might be really useful. If you can see here that I click in this top right corner and give it a pink tick, you can select the ones that you think are of interest, and you can actually share those directly with people, or you can add it to an album that you create. Now this first tick here, if I click on that, it will ask you if you want to create a new album or add to an existing. And if you've got existing albums on there, you will find them on this drop down list. If not, you can create a new album. Okay. And then once that's done, you can view the album. Now, what's great about this is if you, for example, as I mentioned, wanted to share some images with a third party who's creating something for you, what you would need to do is create your album, and then you can actually go ahead and where is the share option? Clicking on the share button, you could create a link and you could send that link onto an individual. Depending on what they're doing with that, you can allow them to view the album, and you would hit done. Now, in some situations, and for security purposes, you can click on this box here that says they would require a login. The reason this wouldn't work is because we do not give access to third parties to Brand Hub. So you could give them access to view the album, get some direction on what the images would be useful for inclusion, or you could download the images yourself and just send on. So if you look over here where you had that download button, you could select the images and then just download them to your machine. Now, the other great thing about what this system does is it doesn't just upload the images in one format. You've also, and again, I suppose it depends on the usage. So the high res would be a really good version if you wanted to print. If you were doing crops, for example, for your website, you've got the crops ready to go there. If you wanted to use a hero banner for your website, you've got the crop ready to go there. And then you've got the original image if you want to just download for other uses. So you can select the variations of those images that you would want, and then you can start your download. It may be that you don't need all of them, it may be that you need all of them, but the choice is yours as to the ones that you select. Any questions on that so far? No? Okay, I'll keep going. So that's the albums and kind of creating an album, being able to share that album. In the same vein, you can also so you can share externally, you can share with colleagues, you can download the images, as I said, and share as well. One thing I forgot to mention actually, so some of the templates that we have do actually allow you. So for example, you may have an event happening locally that's led by you, but maybe in partnership with another organization or another supporter. Now, I'll see if I can find an example of one of the templates that do this for you. Basically, what it does is that there is a template that allows you to upload a logo from your desktop or an image or something from your desktop. Now let's see, yes, so the event poster, for example. So if you're having a local event, the thumbnail example that we have is for chair-based exercise. As you can see here, if you were working in partnership with someone, you can actually click on that icon there. And if you had a logo for said partner on your desktop or on your machine, you can actually just add it direct from there. So if you're working in partnership with someone, you can actually feature their logo too. If you only have one, that's fine. And the recommendation would be to go for the outer box as opposed to the inner box. But if you have two, then you can insert those into the system. And it just gives you an opportunity to kind of feature the presence of others if you're working with others on a particular project. So this is probably one of the only templates at the moment that do that. Mainly because of the nature of it, but I think that's something we're going to explore and look at. It does mean that they are limited in size, and you do need to make sure, obviously, that as higher quality, you can see this is not the best quality, but it does make an impact when you add something that's not great. You can see that it's a bit fuzzy, but it will crop it into the boxes that are there, and if you change your mind, you can just click on it and it will be removed. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay, we're whipping through this. Another element of the system that we have are, leave that, yep, the guidelines area. So one of the things that we thought would be useful is some of the key areas from our brand guidelines we wanted to feature on the system, just so people have it offline, actually online, which is an easy to access. What we don't feature on here is all of the detail of the brand guidelines, but some of the relevant things, some of the ethos and the tone and the reasons why and the approaches and the recommendations. And so things that kind of inform the way that we speak, the images that we use, and how we want our brand to work for us. So we featured that on there, and it's just some guidance that we've taken from the actual brand guidelines and we've put on here. So you've got things like tone of voice, some of the design elements, talks about the logos, the positioning, the formats, guidance on the spacing and all the rest of that good stuff, the colors in our color palette. So if you were ever after information about our color palette and you didn't have a copy of the brand guidelines to hand, or you couldn't find it on the loop, the color palette is on here and available, and this hasn't changed. This remains the same. Things like fonts. So we often have people asking us, where can we get our fonts from? Now, the Foco font is actually available on Brand Hub, so you can do a search for that, or FSME, which is another one that we tend to use the most. But FSME is not available on the system, and actually we're not allowed to share it with you. It has to be purchased. So if you have a designer that wants to do some work for you and wants to use our fonts, you can access Foco on the system, but FSME, they actually have to purchase, and the guidance on how to access that is noted here. So they have to go to this website and actually buy the rights to use FSME. If you went to the top here, so one thing I should have mentioned at the beginning, so we have this overarching search button on the system, and you can literally search for anything. So if you wanted to type in Foco, for example, it would take you to the zipped file where the font is. If you wanted to search for a particular logo, I forgot to clear my filter. It will show you logos on the system. If you wanted to look for icons, see if it will do that. Oh, technology. Let's try that again. But essentially, you get the idea. It is literally an opportunity for searching for anything. If there's something that you're looking for and you can't quite figure out what that might be, you can literally use the search and it should help you find what you're looking for. If you come to Asset Library, you can use the filters, but the search is also there if you're after something, just to kind of play with it and have a test and see what's there. So we talked about my albums, we've talked about the guidelines, and then help. So the help is basically a how-to. What we didn't do when we launched was create a massive how-to guide. What we thought we would do is just give some guidance on some of the key things that we thought people would use the system for, and update them here. So you've got access at touch of the button, and it just basically talks you through how to access various things, how to create the templates, the steps you need to take to move through the system, and just gives you guidance on doing that. Pretty straightforward stuff. It's got the link there, so should anyone ever need to kind of get the link again and save it as favorites, you can access it here. Guidance here on checking and updating your details, and then giving you a recommendation to kind of review the guidelines and the help should you need. And then we've also got a bit of an FAQ. These probably could do with some updating actually. So, but a lot of the questions that we get asked are not dissimilar from, you know, when we first launched. So a lot of the questions still are valid today from when we first launched, which I think is quite useful. And then just information about defining users and the workflows and accessing the templates. Oh, just seeing a line here, which is quite interesting. So we do, what we tend to find when we had a bespoke design service many years ago, we were able to design things like annual reports for the network. What we found though is that because of the intensity of the job, it wasn't really, the process took a while and it was quite complex. And so it meant that as much as we would like to have done more for the network, we weren't really able to. So what we tended to do now is just give guidance on and resources to people if they wanted to work with a third party. But I mentioned all that to say that at the time when we would create those assets, obviously things like that would require crop marks and bleeds so they could be done via professional printers. Now, the essence of Brand Hub is the idea is to allow you to create branded, compliant, localized materials with really good high quality images that you can essentially print in-house, because obviously we were aware of the costs of having to go to a third party. There are situations where that makes more sense, but actually if you want to create a few posters for a service or whatever it might be, actually this is a nice, hopefully nice, quick and easy way to do that. We are looking at creating assets that give you the option of selecting crop marks. So there are going to be some situations where actually you do need something done by a professional printer, or you need the numbers that a professional printer can do for you versus what you can do in-house. So we do know that the system gives functionality to allow these designs with or without crop marks. All of the outputs as far as the printed assets come out as a PDF. So we know that this is a format that you can send over to a printer and they can produce what you need. So we are looking at the provision of kind of cropped designs. And we know that the system can do that. So I think as and when we are clear on what templates that will work on, we'll kind of put a comms out to the network and just let you know so you're aware of the function. And I think that's probably all the areas that are accessible and probably used by the network at the moment. Any other questions?
There was a question, but I think you might have answered it. So it was
Okay.
when we're exporting for an external printer, is there a setting that differs from internal, as in print ready, etc., or is it just standard?
Yeah, so it's as I was saying, there are, when you're sending to an external, you'd normally have to let them know, you know, kind of crop and bleed and that kind of thing. And currently, we do not have any assets that we do that with. And that's mainly because a lot of the posters and things that we provide on here are all A4, but larger scale things. I think probably actually, I tell a lie, the probably the only thing that would apply to are things like pull-up banners. There is a template for kind of like 2-meter pull-up banners. So if I show you that, and that has to be done professionally. So Let's see, pull up banner. There you go. So that does require kind of a professional finish. That being said, though, I can't recollect if we ever did anything with crop marks. Let's see what comes out. I feel like this probably doesn't require crop marks. What this tends to do is just make sure that the dimensions, if you're ever going to create a pull-up banner, this has very specific dimensions. So whoever that provider is, just make sure that they're aware that the artwork that you're going to provide has these set specifications, so they'll make sure that the case is as it should be. And the great thing about this is that because of the high-res nature of the images, it will scale just fine. So there should be no pixelation. So long as all the kind of character lengths and the messaging is adhered to, it should print just fine. This does happen to be the most massive one of the files, so it does tend to take a little bit of time to generate sometimes. But I'm pretty sure it doesn't feature crop marks. But that being said, there are printers that will require you. I think things like reports and publications will need to specify that versus a lot of the stuff that we have on the system at the moment.
Okay, Louise, let me know if that answers your question. Oh, it does. Okay. So if anybody's got anything else, just quickly drop it in. And if you've not seen Brand Hub before, then obviously you may not have any until you start to use it. If you do need a login or you don't have one already, should everybody have one at the moment, Hazel?
Yes. So we've been Brand Hub has been up and running for about 3 years. What we tend to find then, what we do ask people is if someone has been working in your organization that has now left, do let us know, because I from time to time try to review kind of users, and if I see that someone hasn't used the system in some time, I'll normally drop a message to that local HK and just say, please review your users. You may have some lapsed ones, and actually it might be worthwhile just allocating another person to your organization if you don't have two. If you are new to your organization or new to Brand Hub, you can send an email. There's a dedicated Brand Hub email, which is brandhub@ageuk.org.uk, and we'll share this with you after the webinar as well. Drop us a message, and I can check who your users are. And if you want to change over who you have, then it takes literally no time at all to do that either.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, as I say, if there's anything else that you want to ask, you can email that email, which will go out in next week's newsletter, just to kind of give you some details about it. We'll also be putting this video up online so you can kind of review. But until then, thank you very much, Hazel. That was very informative, and I hope you all got a lot out of it. As I say, otherwise, thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.